Welcome to Lois and Morgana Davidson Art. It's Lois here, and first of all let me thank everyone that's subscribed to our channel. We've just hit 90,000 subscribers, which is incredible, and we're absolutely thrilled. So thank you so much, and if you haven't subscribed then please do, because it would be brilliant to get to 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year. To celebrate, I'm going to be painting this loose autumn landscape that I've put together from using a few reference photographs and my imagination. The first thing I did was just to sketch out a simple field, foreground field and distant fields with some trees in the midground, and a little bit of hint of some trees across the horizon line in the background. And now I'm going to paint the scene wet in wet. So using a large wash brush, I'm going to wet the sky and the field, and then paint the sky in wet. And I'm going to use lavender, Paynes grey and raw sienna for the sky, raw sienna for the field, and I'm going to use a bit of sap green for the distant field that's catching the sunlight on the grass. And now that my sky wash is in place through wet in wet tipping and tilting, you can see that I've added more raw sienna and some burnt umber with a touch of burnt sienna into the foreground, just to make it a lot richer and more vibrant and more autumnal. And now I'm just going to soften back some of the wash where it's running down a little bit too much into the sky, and by softening and blending these colours with a clean damp mop brush, I can keep that sky nice and smooth. My board's at an angle of about 20 degrees, so I've got a little bit of gravity helping the paint sort of run and flow and diffuse on the page. I'm using Saunders Waterford cold press paper. It's taped to my board with ordinary decorator's masking tape. And now with a flat brush, I'm going to paint sap green in a thin band across just below the horizon line, and this will give me my sunlit grassy field beyond this harvested cornfield in the foreground. And while everything's still wet, I'm going to drop some of the same colours across the field and then into the autumnal tree canopies. And lastly, I'm going to use my palette knife to scrape through to the white of the paper, through the damp paint, and to just start to give the impression of some of this sort of stubbly corn in the foreground of this harvested field. And then I can also use my palette knife to scrape through some paler tree trunks and branches just before the paint dries in those trees, and that will just start them off, and then I can leave the wash to dry completely after that, and the second stage will be painted wet on dry once this wet in wet stage has completely dried off. So here it is, it's nice and dry. It's a little bit brighter in real life than it shows because, as always, the sun's streaming in through my windows and just bleaching this out a little bit. I've mixed up my sap green with a bit of indigo, plenty of water to make a fairly light value, but quite a deep toned colour. And I'm going to use the flat brush and just carefully put in the suggestion of some trees in the distance. These trees are slightly closer to us, not quite as far as the very distant ones, so I'm just putting in a few little tiny trunks with the tip of my small calligraphy brush. And now I'm using the tips of my Princeton Neptune 2-inch modeler brush to drag up these lovely grass shapes that just look like the cut stubble of this field. And for this I'm using a mixture of burnt umber and burnt sienna, and then I'll put a bit of raw sienna in there as well. And then now to finish off the trees, and I'm going to scrape some dry brush across the trees using the same colours, so I get a variety of shades in the autumnal trees, and I shall paint trunks and branches in with a rigger brush. So I shall put some more detail into the trees once that has dried, but now I'm going to use the rigger brush and this darker mix of Payne's grey, burnt umber and burnt sienna to just pull up a few slightly darker grasses in and around the marks that I've made earlier. So just a small amount of detail is pulling this very simple scene together. And then just some slightly richer paint onto the trees, maybe a little bit more rigger work, and I think I'm just about there. So I'm going to remove the tape and have a look and see how it looks with its clean white border, because this can have the effect of allowing us to see it with fresh eyes. We can sort of see if it looks balanced or unbalanced. We can see if we need to add anything else to it. And I think I need just a touch more rigger work in the stubble field and in the trees with this dark colour, just to use the dark tones, just to bring the painting together. I'm very pleased with the sky, and I think the distant field and trees work really well against this autumnal cut cornfield. It's a nice simple scene, and I hope you have a go at something similar. Maybe you've got some autumn photographs of your own that you could use similar methods in order to paint. Once again, thank you so much for everyone that's subscribed and has got us up to 90,000. We'd love to hit 100,000, so if you haven't subscribed yet to our channel, please subscribe. It doesn't cost anything, and we'd really appreciate that. So here's a truer to life representation of the colours, which you can see are a lot more vibrant in real life. If you're interested in more in-depth workshops and tutorials and would like to support the channel, then please follow the links below to mine and Morgana's Patreon pages, where we, as I say, do more in-depth workshops for you there. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much to everyone that supports us on Patreon, and welcome to all the new patrons. It's lovely to see you there. I'll see you soon. Take care and happy painting. Bye.